Well, hello and welcome to this week's Material Musings. Let me move all the distractions out of the way. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some of these fabric books that I've made, fabric art journals, and I've made them to do some of my fabric artwork and in terms of experimenting and seeing how I can work with the different supplies. So some of them have specific uses, like this is one that I stitch in, and then what I want to do is just go through them and show you how you can create your own and the kind of things that I would use them for. I mean, obviously, you may decide you've got different uses for yours. But so this month what I'm going to be doing is looking at some of the techniques that you can do in these fabric books, and it's worthwhile creating your own, and you can create them from scrap fabrics, put them together, and yeah, so we're going to be going through these two for this week. I'll also share with you where I've got with the project over the next few weeks. We're going to be going through these, so I hope you do come back, subscribe if you're not subscribed, yeah, so that you can be alerted, and hit that notification bell. Okay, get that out of the way. So I'll look maybe first at the project that I've been working on last month and where I've got to so far. And what I decided was, you know what, it takes as long as it takes. You can try and rush things through, but life was life-ing. And I had other things came up. So, I'm pleased with the progress and where it's got to now, and I'm glad to be able to just take my time and work through it rather than, rushing through on, I don't know whose agenda I was working towards anyway. But I was hoping that, especially these smaller projects, that they wouldn't take as long as they take, but it depends on the detail that you put in them, and it depends what you're inspired to do. Like on this one, it is just stitches. It's slow stitched, and we've got a variety of different stitches. It's made up of the wax resist that I've been sharing, and I showed you how to do that technique, and I'll leave the links that you can go to, how you can wax resist your own fabric. And I've used a combination of embroidery thread and the crochet thread, and yeah, I'm just enjoying seeing how it progresses. I haven't done any beading and things like that. That's something that I would do for my projects, but I'm just enjoying them as it goes along. So that's that one. For one of the smaller ones, I took that further as well, and this was the house one. Some of the a couple of the smaller projects that I said I was going to be doing, and so I took this further with the fabric, the back in upholstery fabric, and again looking at how I use the puckering of the fabric but actually incorporate additional stitches. Let's just come in slightly there. So you've got puckering because of the different weights of the fabric, but I use that to my advantage in terms of adding the stitches, and it's just then, for me, it's a really nice, I love the texture and the feel as it's puckered, but then once you add additional stitches, it kind of transforms the surface of the piece, so you can see where here it would have, had that same kind of effect. And so I'm just looking forward to taking the stitching down here and just creating a piece. So as I say, what I want to do now is look at additionally ways in which we can add either paints or some of the art supplies that we've got to the fabric. And so, as I say, we're going to be looking at these two. I'll do a flip through first, and then we'll look at an additional technique, and we'll expand on that with these ones as well. Okay, so the technique that I really wanted to look at was how you can use your glitter and use it on fabric, and you can use it on fabric, and I'll share just some of the spaces where I have used it, and next week we'll look at actually taking the glitter, applying it to fabric, using our stencils and working on it. So this is a fabric journal that I made out of my son's school uniform trousers. So I just took the trousers over time. It was just like, this fabric is, I think it was a Teflon, and you have to be careful with the materials that you use and the supplies that you use on it. Anyway, so this was coated. What I've done is cover it in gesso so that I can then apply art supplies to it. And I literally just cut lengths and then stitched it and then added this bit over it. So, you know, you can see the stitches. And so it becomes a journal that you can work on. This is, I think, a jumper, and I've added gesso to it, and it can be used. So just, if you think of this as just like canvas, and you would prime the surface with the gesso. There's a plane going to be taking off soon. Anyway, yeah, you can use the surfaces. So think about some of the fabric that you have, and if you've got some gesso, because it then means that you can apply any paint supply or watercolor pencils that you may have. So we'll do a quick flip through first, and then I will go back. And as you can see, I've done a variety of different techniques. We've got, this is Derwent Inktense pencils, and I've used that quite a lot throughout. And the pages have been painted with excess paint. So where I was doing another project, I would then get this and just get rid of the excess paint. And because it was gessoed, then I was able to work on it without, you know, all the paint absorbing into the fabric. So this page I did a transfer. This was a photograph of me. I think I was about 9, and we went to a photography exhibition, and I was snapped looking at an art piece. I've journaled in these, written on the page. So here we've got some glitter that I've added to the page, and then I've gone over it with this piece of, it's sari fabric, and I've just stitched it on. I used the machine to stitch those together, but as you can see, you know, you can write on the pages. This was a black pair of trousers, and I experiment in these. So once you've added the gesso, you can still see lighter coloured supplies. So experimenting with faces, and this again is the Derwent Inktense. Again, just experimenting with faces. So it's nice to have a fabric journal. We've done some stenciling here, and I've done some stamping, again experimenting with shapes. On here I wanted to see how my jelly roll pens or the Posca pens work. I've used paint, no, this was ink, and I've yet to experiment with that. And then I worked with texture. I made my own modelling paste, and you can see the texture on there. I made my own modelling paste, allowed it to dry, and then painted over it. You can see. Again, gesso and paint. This I've used 3D textured paint. So yeah, this is you know, just about experimenting, and as the page comes together, it comes together. I had on a larger piece, before I'd cut it up, written words with the glue, and then added the sorry, this was one of those, what are they called, like stickle ones where you can write with them. So, and this was done you know, a few years now, so they've not come up. So again, it's nice to have a space where if you're not sure what the result is going to be, you can experiment first on fabric and just experiment and play. Yeah, so this one here now, it was a series of, again, the school uniform trousers that I have brought together. Let me go through a bit slower. So I've added some buttons. I had loads of buttons and it was just like, I don't like these colours, but on here, on this fabric, it just makes it look very different. And we've got some pockets, crochet, experimenting with different techniques. So this is what I wanted to share. So this was, I used the fine point glue applicator and wrote out the words and then added the glitter. And it's amazing how it takes a lot to use up your glitter. I guess it depends what you're doing it on, but I'm trying to get through it. I seem to get more and more, and I'm trying to get through them. But it's taken a while. So this is just pieces that have been cut up, smaller pieces that have been already worked on to a certain extent. They've got the background, and then I've stitched them together as just separate. They're not, there's not just one signature, it's several folios, several of them stitched into this fabric piece. So they're all stitched down there together. So yeah, on these pages now, I've, you know, experimented with, you know, trims and things like that. And I wanted it to be a book that I could just come in and, because like say this page has got lots of writing on, and already, because it's been cut down, it was made like a master board and then cut down. I can just, you know, it's already there. Stuff is already there. If I want to do a face, I can do that. If I just want to go in and do some doodling, I can do that. Or if I wanted to add a piece of fabric that you know, if I wanted to stitch anything on, I could do that. I might cut that up. And then experimenting with stamps, with just designs, ideas for, you know, like tip-in pages. And I think I've shared doing this page. And then pages where I can go back in and do some doodling. So I created all these leaf shapes using the ink. So I would come back in and do some doodling. And then just doing it with, doing different designs and seeing how I feel about them. You know, do I want to come back and work on it, or do I want to add something, or do I want to just go over it again with gesso and start from fresh? But having these spaces that you can experiment with certain designs is important. I had made my own stamps just using the sticky back things that you would use in card making, and just put them onto a surface and used it as a stamp. And this is an example that we're going to go into next week, and just using our stencils, stencil some fabric, and then you've got it that you can use in any of your projects. You can stitch them and you can work on them. And here are some that are, this is another wax resist piece. It was one of my favourites because of the colour that I managed to achieve. This was using a conventional dye. I'd initially dyed it with clay and it was very light, and then I came in with the conventional dye, and then when I took it off you got that combination of the clay and the conventional dye, and I really liked it. So I've had lots of bits that I've cut up. So sometimes in these journals what I do is I use a glue gun and I just stick them in, or I stitch them in. When with these pages, because they've been gessoed and then painted with acrylic paints, and like this is like, you know, like one of those puffy dimensional paints, it makes it harder to stitch through. So what you could do is pre-punch the holes, or, you know, if you don't mind it being, you know, stuck with a glue gun, then that's, you know, entirely up to you. So again, this page is, I'd made a stamp and I wanted to test it out. So this is one that I made, this is one that I made, and I wanted to, you know, I've made it into a house, and then we've got little people there. But yeah, I wanted you to just take a look at that and think about what kind of mini journals you can make, and they are fairly small. This measures 6 by 6, and this one is 8 by 7.5. But you know, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just what kind of supplies do you have that you can use, what kind of fabrics do you have that you want to bring together. So take a look at the natural fibers works better. So this is like a mix of, and then it's been coated. So natural fibers work better in terms of, you know, adding then gesso and then working on them, as you can see. And but just see what kind of fabrics you do have, so that you can just experiment basically, and you know, go to a thrift store and kind of check, and you can, you know, probably get quite or look in your own cupboard. You can probably find a lot of like clothes that are either too big for you, or, you know, you never wear, but that will make really nice pieces that you can work on in terms of stitching. So I just wanted to share that with you. As I say, next week we're going to be taking the glitter. So I've just got quite a few packets and things of glitter that I've collected over the years, but that they're always, you never, but you know, when you add that to the fabric, you're only using a little bit because it's just sticking to the glue, and so you're always left with loads, and every time I use the glitter I'm always covered in glitter for the rest of the day. So I hope you that will get you thinking as to what you may have that you can work on, and yeah, think about doing some experiments on the fabric, and not to feel rushed. I'm going to take my time finishing off this main piece because I've still got the backing. Let's look at the backing. Oh my gosh, look how it's looking. Oh, I love it. So this sheet was going to be the backing but with all the stitching, perhaps I won't do a backing, or perhaps I do it so that it can be seen. We'll see anyway. Yeah, so I'm going to finish this piece, but as I say, you know, we're going to look at working in some of these. And so next week we'll do the glitter. I think the following week we'll look at the Derwent watercolor pencils and some of the other supplies that you wouldn't necessarily normally think of working on fabric. And we'll just have a play. So I hope you join me, and I look forward to seeing what you do. Remember to share what you're doing. I'm on Instagram at Reality Arts, and so tag me and I will share what you do. Okay, you take care, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.